Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Bob Holz here. He's the drummer of
Bob Holz Fusion Collaborative.
The album's coming out September the 8th, if I read that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to listen to it ahead of time. I love your remake of Chicago's Make Me Smile. I don't know how to describe it other than as if Chicago, Frank Zappa, Wynton Marsalis, the Tubes, and Steely Dan all got together in one room and decided to jam together.
I like hearing that because those are all the bands I love.
I hear some jazz and it just sounds like people got in a room and started jamming, and nothing's wrong with that. But this album seemed like it had a purpose. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. Well, it took 4 years to make this thing. Of course, we had 2 years where COVID shut everything down. And we kind of set out to do exactly what you just mentioned, more than just a bunch of guys jamming, improv over jazz chords. We wanted to be a little more song-oriented. And then this one, I brought in some vocalists. Some of the tunes, we get into more rock stuff and a little bit of more contemporary type stuff. So that was the idea, to try and broaden the listenership instead of something, real straight ahead jazz. We wanted to kind of see how people reacted to it. And so far, everybody's been pretty positive. So yeah, that's kind of how it came together.
Well, tell us a little bit more about you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm a native of New York, upstate New York, Syracuse area. I got into the drums very young. I think I was about 10 years old. I had parents that would put up with all the crazy noise of a drummer. So they were supportive. When I got out of high school, I went to music school in Boston at a place called Berklee College of Music. Stayed there for a while. I started playing out around the Boston area in various bands and doing some recording sessions. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth initially into this business. After I got done at Berklee, I moved to New York City, and I was living in the tri-state area, not right in Manhattan, but going in and out all the time to play and record. And at that time, back in the 80s, there was a lot of activity, a lot of studios in Manhattan. Coming off of the whole disco thing, there was a lot of that was starting to fizzle out. So it was a good time to be there. I started playing all over the Northeast in various bands as a sideman. Then I wound up moving to Los Angeles. In LA, I started to connect the dots with a lot of other musicians that I ultimately wound up working with and collaborating with. So yeah, just networking and continuing to try and build my playing and compositional skills. In LA, I met Holz-Stathis, the executive producer of all 6 of my albums on MVD Audio. And Rob and I have a passion for trying to put out quality music, something that's going to last, that people will enjoy playing, and that was kind of our vision. So my first couple albums were with a guitar player by the name of Larry Coryell, who was a guy that kind of one of the first people to blend jazz and rock together back in the 70s. That was a great experience. I put 2 albums out with him. It's just been kind of connecting the dots, Kyle. You do a project, you meet some other people that are on the record. Suddenly we start talking about the next project. So it's just been this really nice progression of, collaborating with other great musicians, and in many cases with people that, I've always idolized for a long time. And wow, here I am working with them. So that's kind of how it's been for me. And now I'm out in LA right now. Actually, we're playing a concert tonight here in Hollywood. But I'm living back in New York. Once COVID hit, I made the move back east So that's where I am right now, living, but coming back and forth, as needed.
Have you always had a love for jazz?
Well, no, not really. I started out, as a rock drummer.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me, well, what kind of drummer are you? I'm basically a rock and roll drummer that got into jazz later. That was from sneaking into my parents' record collection and seeing these things and go, wow, what is this throwing it on? I go, oh, that's kind of cool. So, yeah, that's how I kind of got into the jazz thing. And then when I worked with Larry Coryell, the guitar player, I just liked the way he would blend the energy of rock and roll with some of the jazz chord forms to come up with them, almost like a progressive kind of thing. So a lot of people kind of think my music borders on more progressive rock. It's not, typically your straight ahead jazz. It's
Right.
electrified and loud. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Well, you've got a lot of great players on there. I've had John McLaughlin on my show before. I see he's playing with you, and the bass player, I believe he played with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, he's with them right now. He's been with them for over 30 years, Darryl Jones. Yeah, it's been an honor. Actually, he and I we did a video a year ago out here in LA of that song "Make Me Smile," the Chicago tune. We went into Sunset Sound, which is a studio. It's recorded a lot of really big albums, and we went in there with I think it was like almost a 10-piece band, the whole horn section, and did that song, and we shot the video, which is on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out. So yeah, Darryl actually he was going to come down tonight to our show, but he just got called to go to Europe because the Stones had made that announcement about the new album, and it looks like they're going to play some more. So
those guys are going to play until they're in the grave, I think.
I think so.
Well, with the catalog of Chicago's music, and I tell you what, I don't think I've ever heard a Chicago song I didn't like. What narrowed it down to Make Me Smile?
Well, that was a favorite of Holz-Stathis, the producer. He's the one that brought it to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had heard the song back in the day. I remembered it. I think he had seen someone else actually cover it a while back too, and just started thinking, wow, I really love that. That would be something different to do. That's how it kind of materialized.
Well, the singer's name is Elliott Yamin.
Yes. Yeah. He is a guy that was, I think 2008 was on the vocal competition show there. Was it American
Idol? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he won, but he was up there. He was one of the finalists, like number 3. And that kind of launched his career. Since then, he's put out some albums under his own name that have gone cold. So he's had a good run. He's now singing with a band called Special Effects, which is I guess you'd call him a jazz fusion band. So he's still keeping busy, and he did a really nice job not only on the Chicago, but there's a original tune on the album called Back to You. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he did a nice job singing that. Great singer.
Who's the female vocalist?
Her name's Diana Moreira. She lives here in Los Angeles. Her parents were both really well-known jazz musicians from Brazil. Mm-hmm. Her father is a percussionist who's on that same track with her, Airto, who he played on, with Miles Davis and on a lot of albums back in the day. He's, really well known. Her mother, Moreira Purim, was a really well-known jazz singer too. So, Deanna's here living in LA, and she's got a project called Identity, which is a band that plays around this area and all. So we were lucky to get her.
She's got a great voice. The album, I say, is incredible. Do you have like a favorite on there?
Me personally, I like The Tunnel, which is it's got some great guitar playing on it by Dean Brown. He threw some kind of effect on there, and it's definitely rock and roll with a little Indian modality, if you will, in there. Some kind of weird scales that he came up with that it's like, wow, that's really different. I like it a lot. It got a lot of energy.
I tell you, when I was listening to a few of them, I was like, man, I could hear Steely Dan doing this song. And then you had another one, and forgive me for forgetting the name, but I swear it sounded as if the Tubes had done it.
Yeah. There's definitely, I love, you hear a lot of the rock and roll that's still, that I've always grew up with in this stuff. Sometimes I listen to those tunes and I'm like, wow, I could write some lyrics and vocals to go on those tunes too. So, it's not out of the question, but yeah, well, Steely Dan, it was always a big influence. Going back to when I was at Berkeley in Boston, they were, the album Asia came out, and everybody was knocked out by that record.
Well, they were always perfectionists, and they'd take forever to do an album because if they didn't like it, they were doing it over again. If they didn't like the guy playing, they might be out the door and they got somebody else coming in. Of course, Zappa was the same way, but it seemed as if you were in one of those sessions because it was very precise.
Yes, and Steely Dan, I mean, as you remember, they never played live. It was just they were like a studio thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, how are these guys able to do it without going out and playing in front of people? But they had that market covered really good, and like you said, they were real perfectionists. They took the time to get it right, and it involved a lot of different drummers, some of which like Bernard Purdy on there, and Jeff Porcaro, people like that that played those records, all went on to really have huge careers in music. And then Zappa, yeah, well, I mean, that was somebody I got to see a lot, and always really dug his his approach and everything. And it was complicated at times, and then at other times it was just straight ahead rock and roll. I just kind of love the way he blended things. The guy I'm playing with tonight actually was in the Mothers with Zappa. He, for about a year, the bass player, Ralphe Armstrong.
Oh, wow.
So he's got some really funny stories of working with Frank Zappa. The hotel we're in here in LA right now is where Frank put him up. He spent like a month here while they were making a record, but just a lot of cool stories of working with Frank and how he went, how he approached things.
There was a song that kind of reminded me, I think it was Peaches and Regalia. But I don't remember. I just listened to the album. I haven't memorized it yet.
No, that was the same thing I was thinking, Peaches and Regalia. I know, exactly.
And then the Tubes, it's I want to say like the Completion Backwards Principle. That was my favorite album by then.
I always loved those guys.
Yeah. Everybody, I think, remembers them for She's a Beauty, but the musicianship on the Completion Backwards Principle was it was almost as if that was their Sgt. Pepper's or something,
Right.
Do you have any other favorite bands?
Me personally, well, I'm a big Stones fan, always have been. Love the Beatles. I have an affinity for a lot of 80s rock stuff, that's because that's when I was growing up and coming up, and still love all that rock and roll, and then at the same time I like more I guess you would call it like the Yellow Jackets. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Kind of a real groove oriented, sophisticated jazz type funk band. I like that stuff too. And I always like great singers, great female vocalists, anybody like that. Ann Wilson, she just played in my hometown in New York. Heart, bands like that, I always loved.
Has there been any obstacles that you've had to overcome in your life?
Oh yeah. It's been a roller coaster ride, but it's been all good. It's a learning experience for me, I guess. You're not happy when you're going through it, but you always seem to come out the other side, and hopefully for the better. We all got to deal with our parents getting older and all, and my mom in her last couple of years, that was pretty rough, but we did the best to take care of her. Those kind of things that we all got to deal with, facts of life. I was just glad I could be there for you. But, all in all, I wouldn't really change a thing, Kyle. It was all part of the story.
What do you like to do outside of music?
I like skiing. I got into that here in LA. They got a lot of mountains around the area. I enjoy boating. I had a boat for 25 years. Thinking about getting back into it. Yeah, anything outdoors, just like getting out there. I'll still love to go see live music. That's for sure. That isn't going away. And hanging out with people, other musicians, people that like music. That's because it's kind of what I've gravitated towards. I feel comfortable and at home with somebody. I can strike up a conversation with a stranger that's into music or a player, and it's like we got a common bond right away. So that's the stuff that I'm still doing. I thought it would go away, but it's not going anywhere. I still love going out and see bands. We went out and saw a band at the Viper here on Sunset last night. That was a lot of fun. Staying kind of in the middle of the whole rock and roll thing here in LA.
You've got Make Me Smile on the album, and Chicago is one of my favorite bands. I've seen them in concert like 4 or 5 times, and they, even after 20 years from the first time I saw them, still plays awesome.
I know. The horns, they've got this trademark sound, that horn section. To me, it's different than anyone else. There's just something about it. It's them right away.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool is when we did the video here of that, with Darryl Jones, well, the keyboard player that I work with, his name's Bill Steinway. I'm playing with him tonight. He and I are writing partners going back on all my records. He's now playing with Danny Seraphine's band, the drummer from Chicago.
Wow.
He's got a band. They do all Chicago music. It's a big band horn thing. And when we did the video, we had to get the horn arrangements. So Billy got a hold of the drummer from Chicago, the original guy, Danny Seraphine. He said, "Oh yeah, I'll give them to you guys. Here they are." He sent us all the horn parts. It was just so nice of him. Very cool. Made it easy.
Do you have a specific process when you write your music?
Yes, with Bill Steinway, the way I do it is I'll come up with a drum groove.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. I try and have each song on the record have a little bit of a different groove, so it's not like monotonous sounding, different beat. So I'll come up with that. I'll come up with the concept, the style what I want. I'll come up with the arrangement. Intro, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, out, that kind of thing. And then once I get that, Billy, and then I'll typically go into a studio in my hometown and come up with some melody.
Mm-hmm.
Then I send that to Billy, because we're not in the same town. And he'll start thinking about some chords that will go with this. And then slowly we just kind of work back and forth until we fine tune it into something that we like. That's how it's worked. It's just been this collaborative effort of kind of trading ideas on it.
Well, I imagine it's got to be a lot more difficult writing more jazz-oriented music, right?
Well, that's the thing. I have a limited knowledge of jazz chords. I mean, I know some of them, but it's not like I could sit down on a guitar and start playing things. So having a great keyboard player like that really has all the harmony knowledge and all that's what's been very helpful to, so it doesn't take 3 years to write a song,
Right. You have a sponsorship from a drum company, don't you?
Yeah. A company called Canopus. They're from Japan. They're a real high-end drum manufacturer. I've really enjoyed playing with their drums for about 5 years now. And they kind of started out in the jazz world, but now they're making some big rock and roll kits that people are using in hip hop stuff, and they're big. They're an international company. They're coming up in South America, so I think their future looks bright. On the cymbal side, I endorse Paiste cymbals from Switzerland. And I got that endorsement through Carl Palmer, the drummer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I have a mutual acquaintance that knows him really well. Carl's manager lives in Rochester, New York, not far from me, and so he helped out to get that endorsement on the cymbals. And then recently, I just started endorsing Ahead drumsticks, which are a pretty unique drumstick and accessory manufacturer for the drum industry. They not only make sticks, but they make like stick bags, some cool drum thrones, seats, things like that. So yeah, I'm having fun playing those. They're not made out of wood; they're a synthetic. A lot of metal drummers are using them, like the drummer from Poison endorses them. The guy from Metallica. A lot of rockers are using them. But I find you can play other styles of music on them. They're pretty cool.
The album is going to be available on CD.
Yes, it's on Amazon. Just punch in Bob Holz and all the albums that come up with this. The new one's called Holz-Stathis Collaborative. A lot of people ask, well, what does that all mean? Well, we talked a little bit about Rob. Rob is an executive producer. He's worked with people like Stanley Clarke, who's a real big bass player here in LA. He's done a lot of movies and things like that. He loves the kind of music that I've been focusing on. Rob actually sings a little bit on the new album. So he's not just a producer, he's also a performer. He's a great pianist. So that's how we put this the title together, not to confuse folks, but I wanted to give credit where credit was due. It'll all be out, and I think all your streaming platforms, if you want to give it a listen, it's all going to be on there. And we've also created a double vinyl LP, so it's a double LP that's available. That by order won't be available till Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
When we ordered it, they told us some ridiculous turnaround time. They were like, it's going to take forever to get it back, but whoever manufactured it turned it around really quickly. So the street date for the LP, unfortunately, is in November. But I have both right now, and I've been listening to the CD and then listening to the double LP, and they're both good. But the double LP, the vinyl, has something really smooth sounding, really nice separation between all the instruments. It's a cool listening experience.
Oh, and what is your website?
Yeah, Bob Holz. That's BOBHOLZ band BAND.com.
What all social media are you on?
Oh yeah, I'm on all of them. SoundCloud, if you want to go listen to a couple things on there, just punch in my name, SoundCloud. On Instagram, Facebook, of course, Twitter. Yeah, all the major ones. Yeah, if you just punch Bob Holz into your search engine, everything will pop up there. And there's I try and keep up the website updated with any news and things, what's going on. Thank you, Kyle, for doing this. This has been great chatting with you, and maybe I'd look you up if we're ever down there. I'd love to come down and visit Austin someday. We're going to keep trying to make this music, keep going. Tonight we're recording the whole show, and we're doing a 4-camera video shoot. So we're hoping to get a movie out of this and then a new live album, if everything works out. So keep an eye out for that next year, maybe.
That'd be incredible, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time and being on my show. And you're welcome back anytime. Next album, you got to come back.
Thank you, man. Great meeting you.
I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. I hope you'll come back. For my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. And until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.